You know, Dad said, lifting his glass toward Gavin at the head of the table, some kids take up space. Others earn it. The room erupted in laughter. Forks paused midair. The chandelier above hummed with fluorescent indifference. I sat at the far end of the table, on the creaky chair that always tilted just slightly to the left. No one was looking at me, but I felt seen in the worst way, like a crack in the floor everyone steps over but never fixes. Mom chuckled quietly, eyes glued to her wine glass. Gavin grinned, basking in it, then turned and winked at me as if to say, "Even your presence is borrowed." I didn't flinch. I smiled, because anything else would have meant surrender. That week, I turned 10. Or at least, I tried to. The party was Gavin's. The guests were Gavin's. The praise? Gavin's. There was a cake with 2 names iced awkwardly in different colors, but the candles only matched his age. A towering plaque commemorating his scholarship win stood beside the punch bowl like a sacred idol. My name wasn't mentioned in any toast. Not once. In the kitchen, I stood holding a small box I had wrapped myself. A keychain I made at school, plastic beads, a lopsided letter A. No one asked who it was for. I overheard Mom whisper to a friend, "He's just so special. He's going to change the world." Her voice didn't shake when she said it. It was certainty, not hope. I bit my lip. The taste of waxy frosting lingered on my tongue. I slipped downstairs, gifts still in hand. The basement was mine. Or, more accurately, it was the only place no one else wanted. I had been building a solar water distiller from scraps I'd gathered from neighborhood yard sales and Mr. Halston's old toolbox. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Until it didn't. Mom came down the next day, trying to prep the basement for some overflow from Gavin's award display. Her heel caught on the edge of the workbench, sending the model crashing to the ground. It sparked. Then it smoked. Then it was gone. She screamed. Dad came down, took one look at the ashes, and muttered, "More of her useless tinkering." He didn't ask if I was hurt. He didn't ask what it was. I said nothing. I just stared at the charred pile like it was a funeral I couldn't afford. Upstairs, there was a wall. Family photos, arranged like museum artifacts. Gavin at the piano. Gavin holding a basketball. Gavin shaking hands with the mayor. My photo was smaller. Faded. Crooked. A week later, it was gone, replaced with Gavin's debate club portrait. I found the cracked frame in the trash bin by the garage. The glass had spider-webbed through my smile. "We're just rearranging, honey," Mom said when I asked. "Don't take it personally." I didn't. I just started writing my name on everything I owned in black Sharpie. My notebooks. My shoeboxes. My pillowcase. If I wasn't going to be remembered, I would at least be declared. One afternoon, Mrs. Halston came by with her usual peach pie and a warm smile. She stood in the living room, taking in our home with the reverence of someone who never got to have one like it. "You're lucky, Averly," she said. "Such a beautiful family." I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "We're pretty polished." She didn't hear the strain in my voice. After she left, I snuck back to the basement. The smell of burned plastic still lingered. I found the old radio under a pile of paint cans. It hadn't worked in years, but something about its silence felt safe. I sat beside it, fingers tracing the broken dials. It didn't need to make noise to matter. Later that night, I passed by the dining room. My chair, the creaky one, still sat empty. No one noticed. They never did. Sometimes I wonder if chairs remember who used to sit in them. If they miss the weight when it's gone. Have you ever watched your birthday disappear into someone else's spotlight? Tell me in the comments, what made you feel invisible growing up? Sometimes, not being seen is louder than being yelled at. I left the room. My chair stayed empty. The basement's door creaked behind me, but I pushed further. I didn't go back upstairs after that night. The basement became mine in a way nothing else ever had. It was damp, sure, and the air carried a permanent mustiness like forgotten laundry, but it was quiet. Safe. I started clearing space behind the old shelving, where unused holiday decorations lived and cobwebs had their own kingdoms. That's where I found it. Tucked behind a box labeled Easter 1992 was an old radio, dusty, cracked, barely recognizable. Its buttons were stiff, the antenna bent, but when I pressed the power knob, it crackled. That sound, static, raw, and uncertain, was the first time I'd heard something fight to exist. I decided I would fix it. I stole books from the library, beginner's electronics, radio repair for dummies, hiding them under my hoodie, sneaking them past Mara like I was smuggling contraband. At night, flashlight wedged between my teeth, I sat with wires, pliers, and prayers. Every flicker of noise felt like applause. Every click was permission. You fix things so they stop being ignored. When I turned the dial one night and caught the faint drift of soft jazz, my hands shook. Not from fear, but pride. Something I touched worked. Something I fixed made sound. I didn't feel invisible down there. I felt like I was building myself out of silence. Then one evening, Dad heard it. The music, just above a whisper, floated through the air vent. I didn't even hear his footsteps until they were crashing down the stairs like thunder. "What the hell is that?" he barked. He saw me, cross-legged, screwdriver in hand, eyes wide with caught wonder. The radio hummed behind me. Without a word, he marched over, yanked the power cord, and slammed the radio to the floor. It shattered, sparks snapping in the air like spitfire. My creation, my voice, obliterated in seconds. "I don't raise girls to play with junk," he growled. "You're not a damn mechanic." I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I stared at the ruins like a soldier at a battlefield. He stormed back upstairs. Mara stood at the top of the steps, arms crossed, her mouth pressed into that familiar, safe line of silence. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She never did. That weekend, I submitted a project to the regional STEM fair, a miniature hydraulic bridge built from balsa wood and plastic tubing. It worked. It held weight. It even had adjustable height with a tiny hand crank. But I needed a signature. At dinner, I handed the form to Dad. He didn't even look at it. "I'm not signing you up for another failure," he said, voice flat. I waited. I turned to Mara. Her eyes darted, between me, the paper, her plate. Nothing. That night, I ate alone in the basement. Again. The next morning, the newspaper ran a story on Gavin, winner of the state law essay contest. A full-page photo. Dad cut it out and framed it. I wasn't in the paper. I wasn't anywhere. A week later, I yelled back. Just once. I don't remember the words, but I remember the silence that followed. Dad locked the basement door. No windows. No clocks. Just me, a notebook, and what was left of the broken radio. Mara brought food, quiet knocks on the door, plates slid in like a prison cell. She said nothing. So I started writing. Page after page. Not poems, not stories, plans. Diagrams. Sketches. Blog entries I couldn't post yet. I titled the first page, Road to Table. If no one listens, I wrote, I'll write to the 5 people who might. I mapped out a design for a new table, one no one could remove me from. Wide seats. Equal lights. A place where silence wasn't a punishment. By the 3rd night, I stopped counting time. The darkness became familiar. It didn't judge me. It didn't laugh. It just held me. I dreamed of building again, not asking for permission this time. When the door finally creaked open, no one spoke. I stepped out, past Mara, past Gavin's latest trophy, past the dinner table. I didn't sit. That week, I opened a blog on the library computer. Anonymously. No profile picture. Just text. You don't have to ask to take up space, I typed. It got 5 views. I memorized the IP addresses like they were names of saints. In my notebook, I wrote, "Don't wait to be invited." Mara noticed. The sharper gaze, the quiet lips. But she still said nothing. Silence, after all, was our family's inheritance. Have you ever built something in secret, just to prove you could? Was there ever a time your silence screamed louder than your words? Share your invisible victories below, I read every one. That night, I began writing my plan, not to escape, but to rebuild. The email came just after midnight. I was alone in the library, surrounded by notes and vending machine wrappers. The subject line read, Stanford University, full award notification. I blinked. Read it twice. Then again. I didn't move for a full minute. It felt like breathing for the first time after being underwater too long. Mara said congratulations like it was a question. Dale scoffed. Nobody wants you, they just need quotas, he muttered, not looking up from his newspaper. Gavin laughed across the table. Guess they'll take anyone now. I printed the letter anyway, slipped it under my pillow like a secret. That crimson Stanford logo wasn't just a school, it was a doorway. A 3,000-mile-long lifeline. The night before I left, Mara stood by my suitcase, holding something in her hands. The broken radio. I hadn't seen it since the fire. She placed it gently among my clothes, as if it were glass. I thought you might still want it, she whispered. Dale appeared behind her, caught sight of the radio, and erupted. You're not taking trash from this house, he snapped, grabbing it and storming to the fireplace. Flames roared up like they'd been waiting. I didn't flinch. I watched it burn, acceptance letter clutched in my hand like a flag. You can burn things, I said quietly, but not what they meant. Mara turned away. Her shoulders trembled. She said only one word, go. No one drove me to the airport. I took the bus, 2 suitcases, a hoodie that smelled like the basement, and an empty stomach. The terminal felt sterile, but clean. Honest. The overhead speakers called out flight numbers like they were naming freedoms. Dale's voice echoed in my head, cruel and permanent. I pulled out my phone and deleted every voicemail they'd ever left me. A little girl sitting across the gate stared at me. Are you scared? She asked. No, I said, I'm ready. As the plane took off, I looked down at Charleston. The streets, the porch light, the house, blurred into nothingness. In my mind, I whispered, I left behind the echo of someone else's laughter. California was brighter than I imagined. But lonely. I worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, and studied until my fingers ached. One night, I passed out in the library. I woke up to hands checking my pulse. "You're dangerously dehydrated," the woman said, her voice calm but firm. "Smart people forget they need rest too." She introduced herself as Dr. Linnea Brooks, robotics professor, human being. She walked me back to my dorm, sat me down, and asked what I wanted to build. "My own table," I told her. She didn't laugh. She nodded. "Then you need tools." She became the first adult to look at me without expecting me to disappear. Under her guidance, I picked up blueprints again. I started sketching between shifts, arms of mechanical arms, a seat that adjusted for back support, a solar-powered center panel. I wasn't just designing a table. I was designing a future. Weeks later, my inbox pinged. "Gavin." Subject: "You've embarrassed the family enough. Don't come back." No greeting. No name. Just that. I read it twice. Then I deleted it. I blocked his address. Then I posted on my blog. "Distance isn't escape. It's evolution." That entry got 7 views. Theo Navarro commented under a username I didn't recognize, "Keep building. You're not alone." I read that line 6 times. Someone out there was listening. Not just watching. Listening. Have you ever left home and realized you didn't lose family, you left ghosts? Tell me below, what's the farthest you've ever gone to find peace? Sometimes miles don't measure distance. Silence does. I thought I'd escaped the noise, but sometimes, silence follows you louder. The first time I saw my name in print, I almost didn't recognize it. A journalist from TechCurrent had reached out, asking for an interview about my prototype, a modular robotic system designed to help disabled engineers assemble parts more easily. It wasn't ready for the world, but the world came knocking anyway. The interview took place in the corner of a crowded cafe near Palo Alto. The journalist smiled brightly, typing notes faster than I could breathe. "You've built something impressive," she said. "What does your family think of all this?" That question landed like a pin drop. I paused, then smiled. "They're still learning to see me." The article went live the next morning. My inbox flooded. My startup's name trended on social media. For the first time, I was visible, and yet, the feeling was hollow. Visibility wasn't the same as being known. Have you ever had a win that felt like you were standing in the spotlight and still alone? Days later, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. "Averly Quinn," a woman's voice asked. "Clara Yates. I'm a journalist. I think you deserve to control your own story." She told me she'd been investigating my past, my father's old interviews, old community records, the local fair my project was rejected from. "Did you know he refused to sign your competition form?" she asked gently. I didn't respond. My hand drifted to the faint scar on my wrist, the one from when I'd scraped against a metal shelf while locked in that basement. I could almost smell the dust again. Clara hesitated. "You realize this could change how your story is told?" "The truth," I said finally, "isn't something to be ashamed of." She promised to verify everything before publishing. I hung up and sat in the dark for a while, the hum of my old prototype filling the silence. Pride had always been dangerous in my family, but this time, it felt necessary. Then the smear campaign began. Headlines twisted. "Ungrateful daughter profits off family name," one read. My father had gone to a PR firm, feeding them half-truths and slanted quotes. Social media turned feral. "Ungrateful daughter" trended. Family first followed. My notifications filled with strangers calling me a fraud, a liar, a selfish child. I didn't delete them. I screenshotted them. Then I wrote a blog post titled Reclaiming My Voice. Sometimes the loudest people are the ones who can't bear to hear you speak, I wrote. It was my quiet rebellion. Not a scream, but a scalpel. What would you do when your success becomes a weapon against you? Clara invited me onto her podcast, The Table Talks. I hesitated for half a second, then said yes. We recorded in a downtown studio, microphones gleaming under soft light. She leaned forward. Averly, what made you build your company? I looked at the mic. The same kind of static hum I'd once heard from that broken radio filled my ears. They laughed when I tried to take a seat at their table, I said evenly. So I built my own. Silence. Then the producer whispered, "We got it." The clip went viral overnight. Millions of plays. Quotes. Edits. Build your own table became a mantra plastered across business blogs and social media feeds. My father's office phone, I was told, rang all day. He didn't answer. Dr. Linnea Brooks found me the next morning, coffee in hand. You did good, she said. But remember, when the world listens, it starts expecting more. Don't chase their noise. Build your mission. Her words sank deep. She was right. I didn't need another fight, I needed a foundation. That night, I outlined my next project, the Equal Table, an initiative to design spaces, both physical and digital, where underrepresented voices could collaborate freely. Have you ever turned a moment of being heard into a mission bigger than yourself? The city lights flickered through my apartment window. Notifications still poured in, praise, hate, questions, but they all blurred together. Then one message cut through everything. From an unknown sender, "You're toast. We own you now." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed 2 words back. Challenge accepted. The first snow had settled across Fairbanks like a quiet blessing. White rooftops, slow roads, and breath like smoke, it was the kind of silence that didn't sting. Inside the community center, light pulled around a long mismatched table. Each chair had its own story, rusted metal, chipped paint, velvet cushions borrowed from old churches. The sign above read, Table 3000, everyone deserves a seat. I had sent out invitations months ago, handwritten and humble. Veterans with no one left to visit. Single mothers who'd been forgotten by broken systems. Local artists, nurses, librarians. The people who made towns work, but never got thanked for it. Eleanor Price arrived first, wrapped in a coat too big and boots too worn. She carried a folded letter in her gloved hand. She looked at me and said, "Chow don't need to ask permission to exist. Your table proves it." More came. Dozens. Then hundreds. A little girl in a wheelchair rolled up to her place card and gasped. "It has my name on it," she shouted, laughter echoing off the walls. Have you ever built your own seat when the one you were given was broken? Someone began live streaming the event. Within hours, the hashtag everyone gets a seat was trending nationwide. In a house thousands of miles away, Dale Quinn Sr. saw the stream flicker across his screen. He stood frozen, watching the camera pan across tables he hadn't set, faces he didn't know. He picked up the phone. "Mara, what is she doing? Is she mocking us?" Mara was quiet. "She's feeding people," she finally said. I didn't hear the call, but I could feel it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it. Instead, I stood and lifted my glass. To all the seats we were told we couldn't have, I said. The room erupted in gentle cheers. Not loud, not showy, but deep. A sound of something lost being returned. Halfway through the second course, security signaled me. A man in a wool coat stood at the foyer. Dale Quinn. He looked older than I remembered. Or maybe I was older now. He barked at the guard, "You're ruining this family's reputation." I stepped toward the door, calm. "Sir," the security said, "we can call the police." I raised my hand. No need. I turned to the guests, the music fading. "I'm sorry you feel excluded," I said to my father, loud enough for all to hear. "But this seat is not for you." Theo Navarro, standing behind me, didn't say a word. But his presence was enough. The applause was soft, almost reverent. Eleanor reached for a napkin and dabbed the corner of her eye. Later, after dessert, she found me by the fireplace. "There's something I want you to read." She handed me the letter she'd brought. It was in her handwriting, elegant, shaky, proud. "I watched you sit at chairs where you weren't invited. I watched you wait for a place that never came. You didn't need their seat. Final invitation, yourself." My voice cracked reading it aloud. But I didn't stop. The room hushed. For once, Dale said nothing. Sometimes the loudest apology is the quietest acknowledgement. I took the stage once more. "This isn't just a dinner," I said. "It's a beginning." Behind me, a screen lit up, displaying the homepage for the Equal Table, a digital space where no voice had to wait for permission. I quoted Maya Angelou, "When you know better, you do better." The crowd echoed the motto, "All seats equal." Somewhere, Dale watched alone. I didn't need to see it to know. I stepped off stage. The mission now had a shape bigger than grief, wider than resentment. That night, long after the guests had gone and the hall fell quiet again, I walked back inside to gather leftover centerpieces. One chair hadn't been pushed in. On it sat a name tag, Dale Quinn Sr. I touched the edge. It was warm from the fire, untouched by the crowd. The morning light slipped through the frosted windows, pale and soft. My phone buzzed on the counter, a message from an unknown number, though I knew the rhythm of the words before I opened it. "We'd like to see you." It was signed Mom. My hands trembled, not from fear but from a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. Theo was brewing coffee behind me. He caught the look on my face and didn't need to ask. "You built a table for the world," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time to pull up 2 more chairs." Across the room, Eleanor folded her newspaper, her eyes full of that deep, unspoken wisdom that didn't need permission to land. "Closure," she murmured, "is not surrender." I took a long breath. "Then we'll have dinner here. Same place. No speeches. Would you open the door to the people who once closed theirs on you?" By evening, the air outside turned blue with snow. When the knock finally came, the sound felt heavier than the cold. I opened the door. Mara stood first, pie in hand, trembling smile. Dale followed, no gift, only that thick stare he used to wear like armor. His hair was thinner now, the lines deeper, but his presence still filled every inch of silence. "Come in," I said, not as a daughter, not as a host, just as someone who had finally made peace with her own space. The table was set perfectly, candles low, plates warm, no chair at the head. The same mismatched collection from table 3000. Dale's eyes moved across the room until they stopped on the radio sitting on the shelf. Restored. Clean. Quietly humming static, like a heart waiting to begin again. The meal started slow, too careful. We talked about the weather, the long winters, how planes still sometimes missed Fairbanks because of fog. Then Dale cleared his throat, words sharp from disuse. "You didn't have to make us the villains," he said. I looked at him, steady. "You made yourselves the authors of that story." The silence that followed was heavy, but not cruel. Mara's lip quivered. She whispered, "We didn't know how to listen." Eleanor, ever the anchor, spoke gently. "Sometimes it takes distance to hear the echo of love." The air shifted. Not forgiveness yet, but the sound of something thawing. After dessert, Dale reached into his jacket and slid a folded paper across the table. His handwriting, still bold, still slanted. Maybe I didn't see it until now. I unfolded it, eyes blurring at the edges. No long explanations. Just a confession, simple and unfinished. I placed the note beside the radio. "Thank you," I said softly. Mara reached for my hand. Her touch was light, unfamiliar, but steady. Dale's gaze moved to the radio again. "Is that the same one?" I smiled faintly. "No. I rebuilt it. Like me." He nodded. For once, he didn't need to argue. I switched it on. The room filled with the low crackle of static, then the slow melody of Silent Night. Eleanor closed her eyes. Theo smiled from across the table. Dale began to hum along, his voice cracked but still strong enough to carry the tune. We ate in quiet harmony, no apologies, no revisions. Just the sound of people learning to exist side by side without the need to prove anything. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't need words, just the sound of someone finally listening. The next morning, the house was still. Coffee steamed on the counter, untouched. They had left early, before sunrise. On the table sat a framed photo I hadn't seen in decades, our family, before the silence took over. Behind it, in Dale's unmistakable hand, was a signature beneath a new document, Equal Table Pledge. Outside, the neighbor's child sat cross-legged on the porch, tinkering with a battered radio. Sparks flickered. "Keep it playing, kid," I said, pulling my coat tighter. "The world needs the noise." That night, I wrote the final entry on my blog. Some kids make their parents proud. Others make themselves free.